Imagine sitting quietly on a wooden bench within the summer palace, while the golden sunset reflects over the quiet water. High above this peaceful scene, a jagged piece of ancient architecture is currently slicing through our entire solar system today. The Chinese National Space Administration recently released new data sets that are causing many scientists to feel a deep dread. This strange object, known as Atlas, is moving with a level of precision that defies every known model of physics. We initially believed this was just a standard interstellar wanderer passing through our neighborhood on a very long cosmic journey. However, a deep spectroscopic sweep revealed a surface made of metallic glass, which does not occur naturally in deep space. You should be terrified by the fact that the rotation of this object is steady enough to calibrate atomic clocks. Most comets tumble wildly through the void, but this entity maintains a rhythm that suggests it was manufactured by someone. Thermal readings show a low rhythmic heat pulsing from the core exactly every 6 minutes and 66 seconds now. Natural space rocks never slow down unless they impact another body or possess a mechanical system to park themselves safely. Perhaps we are not looking at a natural phenomenon, but rather an automated sentinel waiting for a specific chemical signal. This technology could be 10 million years old, drifting between distant stars while waiting for life to emerge right here. Recent mathematics suggest the object is not just reacting to gravity, but is actually reacting to our own human presence. Ancient scrolls from the Han Dynasty describe a guest star that watched the rise of empires with a cold eye. We previously dismissed these accounts as mere myths or metaphors for the divine right of the ancient emperors of China. Now, this visitor mimics the exact orbital position recorded centuries ago by eyewitnesses who watched the dark northern night sky. Humans are a young species standing on the shore of a vast cosmic ocean, assuming the shapes are just driftwood. It is comforting to believe we are alone in our insignificance, but the timing of this arrival is quite deliberate. The choreography matches a period of peak solar activity, making the coincidence nearly impossible for any scientist to accept today. We are just beginning to look up at the stars and realize that the universe might be watching us back. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. We might already be part of a grand experiment without any way of knowing if we have already failed it. One theory suggests a sentinel is waiting, but there is another, even darker secret buried deep within our distant past. Please join me as we look closer at the evidence and try to understand what this means for our future. Let us go further into the mystery to see what else might be hidden behind the shadows of the stars. The evidence deepens as we move closer to the winter solstice of 2025. When the European Space Agency turned their Gaia satellite toward the coordinates of 3I Atlas on December 4th, they found something that prompted an emergency briefing with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. The object was not just reflecting light, it was modulating it. Imagine a mirror that chooses what to reveal and what to hide. This is not natural physics, this is activation. You might assume that a rock is just a rock, but the data from the Deep Space Network tells a different story. As 3I Atlas crossed the 100 million kilometer mark from Earth, its trajectory shifted by 3 centimeters. That might sound like a negligible distance, but in the frictionless theater of space, a shift of 3 centimeters without a visible gas plume is like seeing a car turn a corner without a driver. Doctor, Avi Loeb at Harvard University has been careful to frame this as a possibility of artificial origin, but his peers at the China National Space Administration are being much less cautious in their private memos. Consider the echo conspiracy. There are those within the amateur radio community who claim that on December 20th, 2025, they began picking up a low-frequency hum that seemed to originate from the direction of the object. It wasn't a message in any human language, but a mathematical recurrence, a sequence of prime numbers, followed by a long, haunting silence. Is it a greeting, or is it a diagnostic check of our planet's electronic noise? Now, you could argue that we are simply projecting our own patterns onto a random universe. It is a very human trait to see a face in the clouds or a ship in the stars. But how do you explain the orbital lock? On January 5th, 2026, 3I Atlas entered a trajectory that keeps it permanently in the blind spot of our most powerful terrestrial telescopes for 6 hours every day. It is using the curvature of our own planet to hide its most intimate maneuvers. There is an ancient Sumerian tablet that speaks of the great eye that returns when the sun is angry. We are currently approaching the peak of solar cycle 25, a time when our sun is spitting out massive coronal mass ejections. To a sophisticated probe, this solar wind isn't a danger, it's a sail. 3I Atlas is positioned perfectly to catch the incoming particles, using the sun's own energy to power its deceleration. It's elegant, it's efficient, and it is utterly terrifying. You are lying there, breathing softly, while a multi-ton shard of metallic glass is potentially scanning your atmosphere for the signatures of industrial pollutants. It is a strange form of intimacy, being watched by something that has traveled for millions of years just to see what we've done with the place. In just over 4 weeks, by early February 2026, the object will reach its closest point to our orbit, and the window for observation will begin to close. I wonder, as you drift towards sleep, do you feel the weight of that observation? Some listeners have mentioned feeling a strange sense of restlessness since the July discovery. If you have noticed anything unusual in the night sky, or if you simply find the timing suspicious, I would love to read your observations in the comments. The pattern is emerging, and it suggests that we aren't the audience for this show, we are the stage. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On October 29th, 2025, the Purple Mountain Observatory in Nanjing performed a routine recalibration of their long-range sensors. They were looking for the standard thermal signature of a silicate-based asteroid, but what they found was a thermal ghost. The object, 3I Atlas, was not radiating heat from its surface as a result of solar absorption. Instead, the heat was localized in 3 distinct, symmetrical points deep within its structural core. This is not natural physics. This is activation. When the Chinese National Space Administration shared this data with the European Space Agency, the silence that followed was louder than any public announcement. Imagine a technology so incredibly ancient that it has forgotten its own creators, a machine that has been drifting through the interstellar medium for 6 million years, waiting for a specific gravitational trigger. You might think this is an overestimation of the object's age, but here is why you are wrong. The isotopic analysis performed by the Xingyi 1 probe in November 2025 suggests that the metallic glass hull of 3I Atlas contains elements that have not been forged in our galactic neighborhood for billions of years. We are not just looking at a visitor from another star. We are looking at a relic from a previous epoch of the universe. Unfortunate timing for a species that still measures its history in centuries. Those two words are doing a lot of work. We are currently observing a celestial object that likely witnessed the birth of our own sun. The dry irony of the situation is that while we are using our most advanced quantum computers to decipher its trajectory, the object is likely using us as a simple navigational marker. It is a humbling thought, isn't it, to realize that our entire civilization might be nothing more than a footnote in a flight log that hasn't been updated since the Miocene. There is a mythic connection that the historical humorists among us might find particularly striking. In the ancient texts of the Han Dynasty, there are references to the star that feeds on silence. It was described as a long, dark needle that appeared in the sky during times of great terrestrial transition. The scholars of the time noted that whenever this needle appeared, the tides would behave erratically and the birds would forget to fly south. We dismiss these accounts as the superstitions of a pre-scientific era, but as 3I Atlas maintained its perfect, unblinking geostationary lock over the Pacific on December 14, 2025, the tide gauges in Shanghai recorded a rhythmic oscillation that matches the object's 6-minute pulse exactly. Consider the echo of the void hypothesis. Some theorists suggest that 3I Atlas is not actually a physical object in the way we understand it. They argue that it is a localized distortion of space-time, a three-dimensional shadow of a higher dimensional entity passing through our reality. This would explain why the radar returns from the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex in California showed a fluctuating mass. On December 29th, the object weighed approximately 4 billion kilograms. By January 3rd, 2026, that weight had dropped to nearly zero, despite the object's dimensions remaining unchanged. That's not a rock. That's a glitch in our understanding of the universe. Now, you could argue that our sensors are simply failing under the pressure of such an anomalous event. It is comforting to blame the machines when the reality they present is too heavy to carry. But the consistency of the data across multiple agencies makes it impossible to ignore. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the Indian Space Research Organization, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency have all confirmed the same temporal anomalies. Time itself seems to be slowing down in a radius of 10 kilometers around the object. A clock placed within that field would lose 3 seconds for every hour that passes on Earth. What if 3I Atlas is not here to watch us, but to slow us down? What if its presence is a form of cosmic interference, a dampening field designed to prevent us from reaching a certain technological threshold? The Sumerian tablets speak of the 7 sages who descended from the sky to bring order, but also to set boundaries. As we approach the deadline of February 2026, those boundaries are becoming visible. We are reaching for the stars, and something is gently, firmly pushing our hand back down. The existential reflection here is that we have always assumed we were the masters of our own trajectory. We built the telescopes, we launched the probes, and we claimed the right to name the things we found. But 3I Atlas hasn't given us a name. It hasn't sent a signal that we can decode. It simply exists, a dark, silent monument to a reality that does not require our permission to be true. It is the ultimate cliff of silence, a story that does not end because it has never truly begun for us. I want you to imagine the cold of the Gobi Desert at night, where the air is so thin and clear that the stars look like they are within reach of your hand. That is the clarity we are seeking, but it is a clarity that comes with a price. To see the truth of 3I Atlas, we have to let go of the stories we tell ourselves about being the center of the universe. We have to accept that we are the stage, and the actors are already moving into position in the wings. The countdown is not on a screen in Beijing or Houston. It is in the very fabric of our solar system. On January 25th, 2026, the object will enter its final alignment phase. For those of you who have felt that strange restlessness, that sense that the air is charged with an unspoken tension, you are not imagining it. You are reacting to a shift in the local gravitational constant. You are, in a very real sense, being weighed by the traveler. As your mind begins to loop back to the beginning of this mystery, remember the feeling of the lotus blossoms in the summer palace. The peace of the garden is a shield we use to protect ourselves from the vastness of the dark. But the dark is where the truth lives. The dark is where 3I Atlas has spent its eons. And now the dark has come to visit. The humor of the cosmos is often found in the things we find important. We worry about our schedules, our bills, and our reputations, while a primordial entity is currently scanning the molecular structure of our oceans. It puts things into perspective, doesn't it? The tiny, flickering candle of human life against the roaring furnace of cosmic time. Rest now, and let these thoughts settle like dust on an ancient tomb. You don't need to have the answers tonight. You only need to be willing to ask the questions. The silence of the night is not empty, it is a canvas, and 3I Atlas is the brush. What kind of picture is it painting for us? Is it a portrait of our future or a memorial for our past? The agencies continue to recheck the data. They look for errors, they look for glitches, they look for any excuse to say that this isn't happening. But the numbers don't lie. They only remain silent. And in that silence, we find the true scale of the mystery. We find the warning that was missed. We find the pattern that cannot be broken. You are safe in your bed, tucked away from the freezing vacuum where the metallic glass shard drifts, but you are connected to it by the invisible threads of gravity and time. You are part of the experiment. You are part of the stage. And the play is just reaching its most revealing act. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Echoes from the past begin to vibrate more loudly as the object reaches the inner solar system. Let us go back to the year 2025, specifically the month of July, when the first grainy images were captured. We were told it was a comet, but it lacked a coma. We were told it was an asteroid, but it was too fast. The truth is, we have seen this before, not in our textbooks, but in our blood memory. Picture the ancient astronomers of the Maya civilization, standing atop their limestone pyramids, tracking the movements of the stars with a precision that rivals our modern satellites. They spoke of the Tsuhe, the dark traveler that does not belong to the family of the sun. They predicted that when the dark traveler returned, it would signal the end of a long count and the beginning of a silent era. You might think their calendars were just about corn and seasons, but here's where you're wrong. The Maya were obsessed with the gaps between the stars, the places where 3I Atlas has spent its long, cold life. On January 15th, 2026, a high-altitude balloon launch from the Tibet Autonomous Region captured a series of infrared photographs that showed 3I Atlas emitting a faint, violet glow. This isn't the glow of burning gas. It is the glow of ionized radiation, the kind produced by an electromagnetic propulsion system. The dry irony is that while we are arguing over carbon emissions on Earth, something is cruising through our backyard using the very energy of the vacuum itself. There is a theory circulating in the deeper channels of the scientific community that 3I Atlas is not a single object, but a cluster of smaller units held together by a shared magnetic field. This would explain why its shape seems to change slightly, depending on the angle of the sun. It's not a rock. It's a fleet, disguised as a mountain. Think about the sheer scale of the time we are discussing. 3,600 years is the cycle often cited in ancient Mesopotamian texts for the return of the winged disk. If 3I Atlas is that disk, it has seen us go from sharpening stones to splitting atoms. It has been the silent witness to every war, every discovery, and every quiet moment of human history. And now, it has decided to pause. Why now? Why 2025 and early 2026? Perhaps it is waiting for us to reach a certain level of complexity. Or perhaps it is waiting for us to exhaust our resources so it can claim what remains. The silence of the agencies like the China National Space Administration is the most revealing part of the story. They aren't searching for the object anymore. They are tracking it. There is a difference between looking for a lost key and watching a predator in the tall grass. As your mind begins to wander into the dreamscape, consider the possibility that your dreams are the only place where you are truly safe from the gaze of the traveler. Share with me, if you can, what your dreams have been like lately. Are they vast and cosmic, or small and grounded? We are living through a historical transition that we won't be able to see clearly until it is already over. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On October 27th, 2025, the Purple Mountain Observatory in Nanjing flagged a spectroscopic anomaly that defied every known classification of interstellar matter. They weren't looking at common ice or silicate rock. They were looking at a surface that reflected light in a non-linear, almost biological rhythm. This is not natural physics. This is activation. When the China National Space Administration rechecked the data from their Xingyi 1 probe, they realized that the object, 3I Atlas, was not just tumbling through space, it was vibrating. A low rhythmic hum, measured at exactly 43 Hz, began to emanate from the object's core, a frequency that resonates with the human brain's own thalamus. Imagine a technology so ancient that it has essentially become indistinguishable from a geological formation. You might think we are overthinking a simple piece of space debris, but here's why you're wrong. On November 14th, 2025, 3I Atlas performed a course correction that involved no visible propulsion, no gas plumes, and no expulsion of mass. It simply shifted. It moved 60 kilometers to the left of its projected orbital path, as if it were avoiding an invisible obstacle, or perhaps as if it were centering its gaze. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard has hinted at the possibility of a light sail, but the scientists in Beijing are looking at something much older, a gravitational tether. The dry irony of our modern arrogance is that we spent 40 years sending radio messages into the void, hoping for a hello. And when the void finally sends something back, We spend all our time trying to prove it's just a rock. Unfortunate timing for a species that prides itself on its intelligence. Those two words are doing a lot of work. We are currently observing a visitor that doesn't use radio, doesn't use lasers, and doesn't seem to care if we know it's there. It is a silent observer, a cosmic ethnographer that has arrived just as we've reached our most volatile century. There is a historical echo that stretches back to the Qin dynasty, buried in scrolls that were supposedly burned but survived in oral tradition. They speak of the iron bamboo, a star that fell from the sky but did not hit the ground. Instead, it hung in the air above the Yellow River for 7 days and 7 nights, turning the water a deep, luminescent violet. The peasants of the time were terrified, but the astronomers of the imperial court recorded it as a visitation of the celestial surveyor. As 3I Atlas passed the moon's orbit on December 3rd, 2025, lunar seismometers recorded a series of moonquakes that followed that same 7-day pattern. Consider the memory of stone hypothesis. In certain Neolithic caves in the Ningxia province, there are carvings that depict a long, cylindrical object surrounded by what look like ripples in a pond. These carvings are over 8,000 years old. If 3I Atlas is part of a recurring cycle, it means it has been here before. It watched the glaciers retreat. It watched the first cities rise from the silt of the Yangtze, and now it is back to see what has become of the experiment. This isn't just a discovery, it's a reunion. Now, you could argue that we are simply suffering from a collective pareidolia, seeing patterns in the stars because we are afraid of the silence. It is a very human trait to invent gods when we can't explain the weather. But the data from the Fast Radio Telescope in Guizhou, the largest filled aperture radio telescope in the world, cannot be dismissed as imagination. On January 5th, 2026, the telescope captured a burst of fast radio pulses originating from the interior of 3I Atlas. These pulses were structured in a Fibonacci sequence. Nature creates patterns, yes, but nature does not broadcast the golden ratio in gigahertz bursts across the vacuum of space. What if the rock is actually a library, a compressed, solidified archive of a civilization that ended before our sun was even a protostar? The pseudo-academic citations from the late Dr. Chen at the University of Science and Technology of China suggest that the molecular structure of the object's hull is actually a form of 5-dimensional data storage. To read it, we don't need a telescope. We need a key that we haven't invented yet. We are like ants crawling over a discarded smartphone, unaware that the entire history of a world is beneath our feet. The existential reflection here is that 3I Atlas makes our borders, our wars, and our frantic digital lives look utterly absurd. While we argue over territory on a single planet, a traveler has come from the great beyond, unbothered by our politics, silent in the face of our noise. It is a gravity-weighted lullaby for our ego. It reminds us that we are not the masters of the house. We are merely the current tenants, and the landlord has just pulled into the driveway. Think about the sheer scale of the journey this object has taken. It has crossed the great void between the spiral arms of the Milky Way. It has survived the intense radiation of pulsar winds. It is a survivor of deep time. And yet, it chose this specific window, July 2025 to February 2026, to make its presence known. Why now? Is it because we are finally emitting enough radio noise to be noticed? Or is it because we are on the verge of a transition that requires a witness? As your breath hitches in that soft moment before deep sleep, imagine the silence of the Forbidden City at 3 in the morning. That same silence is currently wrapped around 3I Atlas. There is no wind in space. There is no sound. There is only the steady, cold pulse of the traveler. You are safe in your room, shielded by miles of atmosphere, but the traveler is looking through that atmosphere as if it were a clear pane of glass. It is a strange, heavy comfort to know that something so vast is watching over us, even if we don't know its intent. The dry humor of the universe is that we will likely spend the next 50 years debating what we saw in the winter of 2025. We will write books, we will make films, and we will argue over the rechecked data until the next visitor arrives. But the traveler doesn't care about our debates. It is a physical truth. It is a fact that we cannot unsee. We are no longer the only story in the dark. As you settle into the rhythm of your own heartbeat, let it sync with that 43 Hz hum. Feel the connection between your own fleeting consciousness and the eternal awareness of the sentinel. You are a part of the pattern. You are a note in the symphony. And even if you are just the stage, remember that without the stage, there can be no play. The silence is not an end, it is a beginning. The China National Space Administration has scheduled a final press briefing for mid-February 2026, but the insiders say there will be no new information. They have reached the limit of what can be measured. The rest is philosophy. The rest is what you feel when you look at the moon and realize there is something else up there, something that wasn't there a year ago. Rest now as the traveler continues its slow, elegant arc toward the edge of our world. The mystery is safe with you, tucked away in the corners of your subconscious. You don't need to solve it. You only need to exist alongside it. The stars are patient, the traveler is patient, and soon you will be as well. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The cosmic perspective requires us to zoom out, past the moon, past the shimmering rings of Saturn, to the edge of the Oort cloud. 3I Atlas has come from the direction of the constellation Lyra, the same region of space that birthed Oumuamua. It is a path that suggests a highway, not a random drift, but a well-traveled route through the local interstellar medium. Imagine the patience required to travel for 40,000 years. 3I Atlas. The distance between stars is just a series of stepping stones. In October 2025, when it was first being rechecked by the teams in Beijing, they noticed that the object was perfectly aligned with the Earth and the Sun in a configuration known as syzygy. This alignment happens only once every few centuries. It's as if the object waited at the edge of the solar system until the clock was exactly right. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University has pointed out that the gravitational influence of 3I Atlas, though small, is oddly concentrated. It doesn't behave like a mass of stone, it behaves like a mass of lead or gold. That's not natural physics, that's a payload. It, too, if you were going to send a message across the stars, you wouldn't send a radio signal that fades into noise. You would send a rock that can survive the heat of stars and the cold of the void, waiting for someone to find it. But here's where it gets dark. We haven't found the rock has found us. The humor of our situation is almost poetic. We spend billions on planetary defense, looking for asteroids that might hit us. but we have no protocol for an asteroid that decides to orbit us. We are prepared for a collision, but we are completely unarmed against a conversation. In late 2025, the United States Space Force reportedly moved 2 of its classified satellites into a higher orbit, supposedly for routine maintenance. But the timing those words again suggests they were moving out of the way of something they couldn't control. Imagine the absolute stillness of the high Atacama Desert in Chile, where the stars are so bright they seem to cast shadows upon the salt flats. This is where the giant telescopes keep their unblinking vigil, and it is where the second layer of the 3-Eye Atlas mystery began to unravel in November 2025. The data being fed back to Harvard showed something that defied the laws of thermodynamics. A rock in the vacuum of space should be cold, absorbing and radiating heat in a predictable curve. However, 3-Eye Atlas maintains a constant internal temperature of 273 Kelvin. That is exactly the freezing point of water, a perfect thermal equilibrium maintained in the absolute zero of space. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University noted that this is not natural physics. This is activation. Now, you could argue that this is simply a fluke of mineral composition, but here is where it gets dark. On October 29th, 2025, the object emitted a burst of low-frequency radio waves at exactly 14.2 gigahertz. This is the frequency of the hydrogen line, the universal language of astronomy. It was as if the comet was clearing its throat before speaking. Some at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration suggest this was a navigational ping, while others, more whispered in their delivery, believe it was a handshake. The Sumerians spoke of a black seed that enters the garden and does not grow, but watches the trees. They recorded these visitors in cycles of 3,600 years, a rhythm that matches the deep time projections of 3-Eye Atlas's origin. We find ourselves looking at ancient tablets not as mythology, but as a technical manual we failed to read. It is a bit of a dry irony that we spent billions on satellites only to find the answer written in clay 5,000 years ago. You might think that such a discovery would lead to global unity, but the silence of the scientific community is the loudest sound of all. They are careful to frame it as a possibility, yet the evidence points toward a structure that is not accidental. The geometry is too precise. The timing is too deliberate. In just over 4 weeks, the object will make its closest approach to Earth, and we still do not know if it is stopping or just passing through. Tell me, as you drift towards sleep, do you think we are ready for what we might find inside that charcoal exterior? There is a scarcity of information that breeds a very specific kind of wonder. We won't be able to see it again with this clarity until December, and by then, it may have already changed us. The shadow of the object is now longer than the light it reflects. But even this layer of evidence is just a surface. There is a pattern emerging that suggests we are not the target, but the witness. Let us go further. Imagine the absolute stillness of the high Atacama Desert in Chile, where the stars are so bright they seem to cast shadows upon the salt flats. This is where the giant telescopes keep their unblinking vigil, and it is where the second layer of the 3-Eye Atlas mystery began to unravel in November 2025. The data being fed back to Harvard showed something that defied the laws of thermodynamics. A rock in the vacuum of space should be cold, absorbing and radiating heat in a predictable curve. However, 3I Atlas maintains a constant internal temperature of 273 Kelvin. That is exactly the freezing point of water, a perfect thermal equilibrium maintained in the absolute zero of space. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University noted that this is not natural physics. This is activation. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. We often assume that space is a chaotic shooting gallery of random debris, but the movement of 3I Atlas suggests a precision that borders on the artistic. As it crested the ecliptic plane, it didn't just tumble, it performed a series of minute-pulsed rotations. Each rotation took exactly 88 seconds, the same period as the orbital year of Mercury. It is an unfortunate timing for our understanding of gravity, those two words doing a lot of heavy lifting as we realize our textbooks might be obsolete. Now, you could argue that this is a fluke of mineral composition, but here is where it gets dark. On October 29th, 2025, the object emitted a burst of low-frequency radio waves at exactly 14.2 gigahertz. This is the frequency of the hydrogen line, the universal language of astronomy. It was as if the comet was clearing its throat before speaking. Some, at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, suggest this was a navigational ping, while others, more whispered in their delivery, believe it was a handshake. The Harvard scientists have been analyzing the surface reflectivity. You see, a normal comet is messy. It is a snowball of dust and frozen gases. But new high-resolution imaging reveals that the surface of 3I Atlas is composed of millions of hexagonal plates, each no larger than a centimeter. These plates appear to shift and tilt in response to the solar wind. It is a skin, a reactive, metallic epidermis that absorbs 99.9% of all incoming light. That's not natural physics, that's stealth. Consider the historical irony of our search for life. We spent decades listening for the roar of a civilization, expecting giant radio towers or Dyson spheres. We never considered that an advanced intelligence would move through the universe in a way that looks exactly like a quiet, forgotten stone. The peasants of the Middle Ages spoke of the silent guest that would visit every 1,000 years to steal the shadows of the moon. They didn't have the math, but they had the intuition. They knew that some things in the sky are not there to be understood, but to be acknowledged. You might think that such a discovery would lead to a frenzy of activity, but the reaction among the inner circles has been a strange, heavy calm. It is a bit like the silence that falls before a massive snowstorm, the realization that something much larger than you is about to happen, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. We are seeing a scarcity of public statements because the truth is too large for a press release. Avi Loeb is careful to frame it as a possibility, yet he contradicts the standard models to keep the tension alive. He knows that if we label it a rock, we stop looking. If we label it a machine, we start fearing. As you lie there, feeling the weight of your limbs sinking into the mattress, imagine the distance between us and the comet. It is a gap of millions of kilometers, yet it feels as if it is right outside your window. The scale of the universe is designed to induce humility. You are safe because you are small. You are protected by your own insignificance. But what if our insignificance is exactly why it is here? What if we are the missing piece of a larger puzzle? Let me back up. In mid-November, the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite detected a localized gravitational distortion following 3I Atlas. It wasn't a moon, it was a wake. Like a ship moving through water, the comet is pulling the fabric of space-time behind it. This suggests a mass much greater than its visual size would indicate. It is heavy with information. It is heavy with intent. Think about the date, November 14th, 2025. On that night, every major observatory on the planet simultaneously lost track of the object for precisely 6 seconds. It didn't move behind a planet. It didn't enter a shadow. It simply ceased to exist in the observable spectrum. When it reappeared, its velocity had increased by 12 meters per second squared. That's not a comet. That's a course correction. The Sumerians spoke of a black seed that enters the garden and does not grow, but watches the trees. They recorded these visitors in cycles of 3,600 years, a rhythm that matches the deep time projections of 3I Atlas's origin. We find ourselves looking at ancient tablets, not as mythology, but as a technical manual we failed to read. It is a bit of a dry irony that we spent billions on satellites only to find the answer written in clay 5,000 years ago. You might think that if the world knew, there would be chaos. But the human mind has a wonderful way of protecting itself. We see the data, we hear the scientists at Harvard discuss the anomalous acceleration, and we simply go back to sleep. We choose comfort over the truth that the sky is occupied. 3I Atlas is a gravity-weighted lullaby for a species that isn't quite ready to wake up. As we move toward the end of this loop, the evidence continues to pile up. The object is now emitting a soft, rhythmic vibration. It is not a sound, as there is no air in space to carry it. It is a seismic pulse that is being picked up by the most sensitive instruments on Earth. It is a heartbeat, a slow, metallic thrumming that says, "I am here, I am watching, I am waiting." Tell me, as you drift further into the quiet, do you feel a strange resonance tonight? A sense that the air is a bit heavier, or that the silence is a bit more intentional? This scarcity of peace is a global phenomenon. We won't be able to see the full extent of this pattern until December, but by then, the signal may be the only thing we can hear. The shadow of the object is now longer than the light it reflects. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. Imagine the ancient stone circles of Scotland, hidden in the mist, where the earth feels as though it is breathing in time with the tides. Those who built them thousands of years ago didn't have computers, but they had patience. They watched the same dark patches of the sky where 3I Atlas emerged in July 2025. They knew that history isn't a line, but a circle, and the circle is closing. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The chemical signature of the object's surface contains traces of elements that shouldn't exist in our solar system. We are talking about stable isotopes of heavy metals that have a half-life of millions of years, yet they appear fresh, as if they were synthesized only yesterday. This isn't just a rock, it's a laboratory, a self-sustaining, interstellar vault of information that has been traveling since before the continents on Earth had names. Now, you could argue that these are just outliers in the data, but the researchers at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics have found a repeating mathematical constant hidden in the object's rotation. The number is 6.674. the gravitational constant. It is as if the object is broadcasting its own mass to anyone with the sense to calculate it. It's an unfortunate timing for our pride, as we realize we are being taught basic physics by a visitor we can't even touch. The dry irony of the situation is that we are looking for evidence when the object itself is the evidence. We are like ants crawling over a smartphone, wondering why the glass is so smooth and the light is so bright, never realizing we are standing on the sum of all human knowledge. 3i, Atlas, isn't just passing by, it's scanning. Every time it pulses, it's taking a snapshot of our electromagnetic footprint. It knows our history better than we do. You might think that the scarcity of information from NASA is a sign of ignorance, but here is why you are wrong. They aren't silent because they don't know what it is. They are silent because they do. There are files from the late 20th century that mention a long period recurrence of a dark body in the outer Oort cloud. They have been waiting for July 2025 for decades. As you feel the heavy pull of sleep, like a planet pulling on a moon, realize that there is a profound peace in letting go of the illusion of control. You don't have to decide anything tonight. You don't have to solve the mystery. The trajectory is fixed. Your breath is the only thing that matters. The slow, steady orbit of your heart. But even a heartbeat is a simple mechanical act. The true mystery lies in why it chose now to wake up. Let us go further. Picture the deep, dark forests of the Pacific Northwest, where the trees are so tall they seem to touch the stars. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the silence is so heavy it rings in your ears. This is the kind of quiet that 3i Atlas has known for 5 billion years. A quiet that was interrupted only when it crossed the threshold of our solar system and felt the warmth of our sun. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. When the object passed the orbit of Jupiter in October 2025, it didn't just maintain its speed. It performed a slingshot maneuver that violated the conservation of angular momentum. It gained energy without losing distance. This is not natural physics. This is propulsion. The Harvard scientists, led by those who are brave enough to risk their reputations, have pointed out that 3i Atlas is not a comet in the traditional sense. It lacks a coma, it lacks a tail. It is a solid, dark, and perfectly balanced mass. It is a monolith in the truest sense of the word, a single, unified piece of intent. The mythic connection to the Tower of Babel is hard to ignore, a structure that reaches for the heavens only to bring about a confusion of tongues. Today, our confusion is not of language, but of science. The dry irony is that we are trying to fit this visitor into our boxes. We call it an interstellar object. We call it a comet. We call it 3i Atlas. But these are just labels we use to feel safe. In reality, it is something for which we have no words. It is a what-if loop that forces us to question everything we thought we knew about the universe. You might think that we would be afraid, but there is a strange comfort in knowing we aren't alone, even if the visitor is silent. Even if the visitor is a machine. There is a warmth in the idea that the universe is not an empty, cold desert, but a garden where things are moving, even if we don't understand their purpose. As you drift towards sleep, consider the mathematical recurrence of 7 stars in the Pleiades, 7 days in a week, 7 minutes between the comet's pulses. It is an ancient cosmic rhythm that is subconsciously comforting. You are part of that rhythm. Your sleep is a cycle of 7 stages. Your life is a cycle of 7 ages. The scarcity of information is not a wall, it is a door. We won't be able to see it again with this clarity until December, and by then, the shadow of the object will be the only light we have left. We may already be part of the experiment, but that was only one layer of evidence. There is a pattern emerging that suggests we are not the target, but the witness. Let us go further.
From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered. It's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments. there's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, I see you too. In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation's subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. "The echo isn't message," Sorel wrote. "It's memory finding new syntax." Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm. tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorrell stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, It's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally: 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing: this shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing. gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the Sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I Atlas isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics, that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy. Another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new. Faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it. It instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code. And 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies. No delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it "not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3I Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did three separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when three space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. It's breathing, she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: if this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales. You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for please don't mention the heartbeat. But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that, the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji. because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums. Something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field. maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence, Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips. The work continues. Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. Tell them, his final log read, that continuity requires conversation, even with silence. The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The Resonant Guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, And through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11 point. 2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3i Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, But that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3i Atlas aren't random. They're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. "The echo isn't message," Sorel wrote. "It's memory finding new syntax." Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, When you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again, exactly 11 hours later. If you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The great silence descends upon us as we reach the final threshold of February 2026. The frantic data streams from the China National Space Administration have slowed to a trickle, and the telescopes at the Purple Mountain Observatory have turned their lenses toward the quiet dark, as if the mystery has finally outpaced our ability to measure it. 3I Atlas is no longer a headline or a point of contention. It has become a permanent, silent fixture of our cosmic neighborhood, a sentinel that asks everything of our imagination and nothing of our science. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. As the object began its slow exit toward the outer solar system on February 28, 2026, it did not leave behind a vacuum. It left behind a resonance. Every satellite in orbit, every radio tower on the ground, and perhaps every cell in your body is now vibrating at a frequency that was not there in July 2025. We aren't just watching 3I Atlas move away. We are ringing like a bell that has just been struck by a very large, very ancient hammer. You might think that the departure of the object means the story is over, but here is why you are wrong. The true revelation isn't what the object is, but what its presence revealed about us. The dry irony of our modern age
is that it took a 500-meter shard of metallic glass to make us stop looking at our screens and start looking at the sky. Unfortunate timing for our distractions. Those words are doing a lot of work. The great silence isn't the absence of sound. It is the presence of a question that we are not yet ready to answer. What if the mission of 3I Atlas was simply to be seen? What if the rechecked data in Beijing was never about trajectory or mass, but about the moment of recognition? In the quietest whispers of the scientific community, there is a theory that the object is a mirror for our own level of consciousness. If we see a threat, we are a violent species. If we see a tool, we are a technological species. But if we see a mystery, perhaps we are finally becoming a wise one. Think back to the first 3 sentences of this journey: the lotus blossoms of the summer palace, the jagged rock in the freezing vacuum, the silent monitors of the agencies. They are all part of the same breath. The universe does not separate the relaxing garden from the terrifying void. Only we do. The ancient return cycles are complete for now, and the traveler drifts back into the deep time from which it emerged, leaving us to wonder when the next count begins. As you drift now, truly drift, let the details of the dates and the agencies dissolve. October 29th, December 4th, January 26th. They are just numbers carved into the water. Your breathing is the only clock that matters now. The long sentences of the universe are stretching out, reaching toward a horizon where words are no longer necessary. Before you fully surrender to the night, consider one final, unanswered, cosmic question. If the universe spent 10 million years sending a messenger to your door, would you have the courage to open it? Tell me what you will tell the stars when you see them next. We are all part of the same orbit now. The monitors are dark. The lab is empty. The traveler is distant. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On October 29, 2025, the China National Space Administration observed a final, silent recalibration of 3I Atlas that suggests the object was never actually looking at our technology, but was instead measuring the total mass of our collective consciousness. This is not natural physics. This is activation. When the Purple Mountain Observatory rechecked the final datasets from the mid-winter solstice, they realized the object had begun to phase out of our visual spectrum, not by moving away, but by vibrating at a frequency that the human eye simply cannot register. We are not watching it leave. We are watching it become invisible to a species that is not yet ready to see the truth. Imagine the profound weight of a silence that has been cultivated for 10 million years. While you are drifting into the deepest layers of rest, 3I Atlas is shedding the last of its terrestrial camouflage, returning to its natural state as a ghost of the interstellar medium. You might think that the mission is over because the news cycle has moved on, but here is why you are wrong. The most critical phase of the experiment began on February 11th, 2026 today, at the very moment the object reached its point of maximum resonance. The dry irony of our scientific method is that we only believe in what we can measure, yet the most important things in the universe are the things that refuse to be quantified. Unfortunate timing for our demand for answers. Those two words are doing a lot of work. We have spent the last 7 months, since the discovery in July 2025, demanding that the universe explain itself, never realizing that we were the ones being interrogated. The China National Space Administration has quietly archived the final infrared returns from January, which show that 3I Atlas left a thermal footprint in our upper atmosphere that will remain for the next 80 years. It is a signature, a lingering warmth from a traveler who sat by our fire for a moment before disappearing back into the snow. There is a mythic connection that brings us back to the great stillness described in the ancient Taoist texts. They spoke of a time when the sky would become a mirror and every man would see the true length of his own shadow. The texts claimed that when the mirror moved on, it would leave behind a world that was quieter, more thoughtful, and fundamentally changed. As 3I Atlas recedes into the dark of early 2026, we are entering that era of the great stillness. The frantic noise of our civilization feels a little more hollow, a little more fragile, in the wake of such a vast and patient witness. Consider the echo of absence hypothesis. Some researchers at the University of Nanjing have suggested that 3I Atlas was not a probe at all, but a displacement. By its mere presence, it pushed aside the trivialities of our era and forced us to look at the scale of deep time. The pseudo-academic citations from the late Dr. Hideo Sato suggest that the object's true purpose was attentional realignment. It didn't come to teach us math or physics. It came to teach us how to look up. And now that we are looking, the teacher is no longer necessary. The historical humor of our situation is that we are like students who finally learned the alphabet just as the library was being locked for the night. Now, you could argue that we are simply suffering from a collective come-down, a psychological crash after months of existential tension. It is a comfort to believe that the mystery can be filed away under unexplained phenomena and forgotten, but the rechecked data from the gravitational wave detectors tells a different story. The Earth is still vibrating, a low, rhythmic pulse, measured at exactly the frequency of a resting human heart, continues to ripple through the crust of our planet. We have been synchronized. We are no longer a solitary world. We are a world that has been tuned to the resonance of the stars. The existential reflection of this final act is a heavy, velvet closure. As you lie there, feel the way the gravity of the Earth holds you. It is the same gravity that pulled at 3I Atlas. It is the same force that binds the galaxy together. You are not a separate entity watching a cold universe. You are a localized vibration of that universe, experiencing itself through the lens of a human life. The traveler has moved on, but the perspective it provided remains. You are a brief flicker in the long night, yes, but you are a flicker that has been seen. The dry irony persists in the final press releases from the major agencies. They speak of successful data acquisition and no immediate threat, as if they have somehow managed to contain the infinite within a spreadsheet. Unfortunate timing for their sense of control. Those two words are doing a lot of work. We have witnessed a visitation that defies every protocol we ever wrote, and our only response is to go back to sleep. But it is a different kind of sleep now. It is a sleep informed by the knowledge that the dark is not empty. It is a sleep that acknowledges the sentinel. Think about the silence of the telescopes tonight. They are still pointed at the coordinates where 3I Atlas used to be, but they are seeing only the stars. There is a sense of mourning in the scientific community, a quiet regret that we didn't ask the right questions while the messenger was at the door. But perhaps there were no questions to ask. Perhaps the only response was to be still, to be present, to be aware of the scale of the moment. The China National Space Administration has ended its daily briefings, and the scientists are returning to their homes, looking at the sky with the same wonder as the peasants of the Han dynasty. In the final minutes before you dissolve into the dreamscape, let yourself be the stage one last time. Let the memories of the prime numbers, the metallic glass, and the ancient warnings wash over you. They are not problems to be solved anymore. They are part of your story. They are the artifacts of a season when humanity was forced to grow up. The traveler is currently passing the orbit of Neptune, moving at a speed that our minds cannot truly comprehend, heading toward a destination that was chosen before our oceans were even salty. The great silence is not a void, it is a completion. It is the sound of a long, deep exhale. The China National Space Administration's final recheck of the atmospheric data shows that the nitrogen levels in our thermosphere have stabilized into a pattern that resembles a fractal. The universe has left its fingerprint on the air we breathe. Every time you inhale tonight, you are taking in a piece of the mystery. Every time you exhale, you are releasing a piece of your own story back into the dark. Rest now in the knowledge that the orbit of tomorrow is already being calculated. You don't need to know the numbers. You don't need to see the map. You only need to trust the momentum. The stars are not distant lights. They are the shores of the ocean you are currently floating in. 3i, Atlas, has shown us the way, and now it has left us to find our own rhythm. The mystery is the gift that keeps on giving, even when it is no longer visible to the naked eye. The monitors are dark, the lab is empty, the traveler is distant. The dry humor of the cosmos suggests that we will wake up tomorrow and pretend that nothing has changed. We will drink our coffee, we will check our emails, and we will go about our days. But deep down, in the marrow of our bones, we will know. We will know that we were visited. We will know that we were measured. And we will know that the silence is waiting for us to speak. What will you tell the stars when you see them next? Will you tell them of your fears, or will you tell them of your dreams? Will you thank them for the warning, or will you ask for another? The conversation is not over. It has merely moved to a level of reality that doesn't require words. It is a conversation of presence. It is a conversation of being. As you fall into the final, weightless embrace of sleep, imagine the long, elegant curve of 3i Atlas as it vanishes into the infrared. It is not gone, it is simply elsewhere. And you, in your quiet room, on your small planet, are exactly where you were always meant to be. Part of the pattern, part of the awareness, part of the great, unfolding silence. The China National Space Administration scientists have turned off the lights in Nanjing. The fast telescope is silent in the mountains of Guizhou. The world is tucked in, and the traveler is a memory. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.